biochemistry to this group, which is of absolutely no interest to anyone in this group or any of you. So let's go back to the Bible. Thank you for joining us. John through Jewish eyes. We're in John chapter 11, verse 55. And we've just come through the Feast of Tabernacles. And just want you to know how the scriptures just go on from one thing to another, not that concerned usually with time. So now, the Passover of the Judeans, and again, this means the way that the Judeans celebrated it, which was not necessarily the same way that other sects, right? Like the Essenes had a different kind of celebration, Samaritans and so forth and so on. Puerto Rico is here. We're in John 11:55. Yes. So the Passover of the Judeans was at hand, and many went up from the country to Jerusalem before the Passover to purify themselves. Now, what could that? We can make room. To purify themselves. They were looking for Yeshua and saying to one another as they stood in the temple, "What do you think? That he will not come to the feast at all?" Meaning, he's been threatened. Is he going to come? But notice they are coming from the country to purify themselves. And in 2 Chronicles chapter 30, verse 18, many of those who, Hezekiah reinstituted the Passover and read from the Torah and so forth and so on. And there was a revival under him. And so many they weren't ritually pure to partake of the first Passover. So there was a second Passover that was given for those that lived afar off. Those near Jerusalem and in the proximity would have no problem, but those that would be in other countries, for example, would have a very difficult time coming up. And so that they were going to purify themselves, and we don't know which one this is, but the fact that they're purifying themselves, maybe this is the second Passover, right? So, yeah.
Sorry, you did mention before, I remember we were talking about, I think it was Numbers, and you mentioned it to me that there was two second Passovers, and you said the second one, why having the second one?
The second one is a month later. It's for people who couldn't get there on time, basically.
Oh,
because
that's what you meant, that was it?
Yeah. So,
unclean or something like that.
yeah, or ritually unclean. So they're preparing themselves, which in those days took anywhere between 1 and 7 days. It depends on what you were unclean from, right? So 1 to 7 days, it was a big deal, all right? So they're coming from the country, and the country can mean a far distance, which it probably did, and they're purifying themselves, and they're looking for Yeshua, and they're saying to one another, do you think he's going to come? They already had understood that the Sanhedrin was determined to nab him, to kill him, and later on Lazarus as well, right? So here he is. Yeshua already had been present in the temple at the Feast of Tabernacles. I just realized, Dan, I didn't send you that paper. I'm gonna make sure.
I'm quite upset.
I knew you would. I knew you would. Tell you the truth, Dan, I didn't want to send it to you. To be perfectly honest. I thought about it at least 3 times during the week, and I just.
You're the referee. What are you talking about?
All right. See what you're missing? You need to come. All right. So lots of controversy. Now the chief priests, verse 57, and the Pharisees had given orders that if anyone knew where he was, he should let them know so that they might arrest him. So that means that if you kept silent, you were complicit. Okay, so people were afraid to keep silent. So the High Council had issued a warrant for Yeshua's arrest.
You mean like an accessory?
Yeah.
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 If you kept quiet, you use evading a criminal.
That's exactly correct. All right. So the whereabouts should be declared. Now, we move to chapter 12. Now, Judas didn't say anything, right? And so Judas is an interesting character in this whole thing. Why put a guy who is a thief in charge of the money?
Yeah.
Why put a guy that has an alternative motives? I don't know if you've given that some thought, but
But,
Yeah.
but did the disciples know that? I mean, were they aware
Yeah.
that? They were aware that he had issues
Yeah.
with money?
Yeah. and I'm sure they complained about it.
Well, wasn't that prophecy too? Because he, in Isaiah, maybe I'm wrong, maybe it was in the Old Testament where it says he, he was sold for something.
Well, that's the action, but we're talking about.
Yeah, Jeremiah, the 30 pieces of silver. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying, so that's probably, that's why he was chosen. Maybe
Well,
he was
let's put it this way. He's an interesting figure, but you notice he does not speak up. Okay.
Only when.
Because there's no there's no reward.
Only because of the people.
Okay, maybe. We'll have to take a look at that, right? So Yeshua they're not able to defeat him in public debate. Some of his teaching was obscure, so they were hoping that obscurity but that didn't work out because a lot of people began to believe in him. Yeshua's terminology was something different than they were used to because his definitions had to do with God's intentions, right? Rather than their machinations. So all of that was strange. Well, maybe the people will be confused by that. If we're confused, that didn't happen because of the miracles. And then of the supply that Yeshua provided. So anyhow, 6 days before the Passover, Yeshua comes to Bethany. Now, again, this is the Bethany. You finally figured out we're actually meeting.
I've been here.
I'm so sorry. If you give Sheena your email, then she'll make sure. Okay. You just decide to show up. Okay.
My daughter's like, are you sure everybody's healthy and they're not gonna be like?
Well,
I said, stop making fun of a rabbi.
I'm emeritus now. You can say what you want, and I don't care.
All right, I'll let you do that. I'm just trying to be respectful.
That is taking all kinds of fights today.
Did you care before?
No.
Sorry, Dave.
Not done. Sorry, guys. Turn this off. Okay, so this is a critical time. So he comes to Bethany, where Lazarus was, whom Yeshua had raised from the dead. And, he'd been there a goodly number of times. Okay, good. So they gave a dinner for him there. Martha served, and Lazarus was one of those reclining with him at the table. The dinner was given by Martha and Mary, and the notation that Lazarus was among the guests seems unnecessary, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's his own house, isn't it?
It kind of signifies a relationship, right?
Is it?
Or intention, maybe?
Well, if he's in the house of Martha and Mary, it's really Lazarus's house.
But they're showing deference. to Yeshua.
Okay, it could be. It could be John
The
showing.
dinner was for Yeshua.
It's interesting. I never picked up on this until just a little while ago, but back in chapter 11, the beginning of chapter 11, Mary is referred to as the Mary that white, and now she's doing it in this chapter.
Yeah, it hadn't happened yet.
So,
Yeah,
so
that's
has it
what I-
happened, has it not, or are these not necessarily?
Oh.
Because his goal was,
Yeah,
this is the
it's
Son of
mentioned
God, not in
as a first,
chronological
then after that.
order.
Yeah.
Oh, so like this is like foretelling also, like mentioning Lazarus here, so one story of Lazarus being
Yeah.
resurrected, there's a tie back.
But it tells
Or
me.
this happened before.
It tells me that
Chapter
perhaps
12
John
happened
was
before
writing
It's
chapter
possible. It is absolutely possible.
No, it's
Yeah.
not one.
Or Martha Mary had ESPN. I mean, ESPN.
But notice the notation here, whom he had raised from the dead. Again, that could be just like Mary.
So, yeah,
Okay.
so we're.
It could be. It absolutely could be that these chapters are, reversed. But there's another possibility that it's clear from what I'm saying that I like this one better. But because of the notoriety and because of the vehemence of the Judeans against Lazarus, he may have retired from public life.
Lazarus?
Yes.
Okay.
And he's coming out of seclusion for this special dinner for Yeshua.
Oh, Rabbi.
Retired for what
What
did he do?
He was not, he did not want to appear in public like he had before.
It's like he'd gone into
Okay.
hiding.
Okay, you can imagine he's a
Yes.
target. He's
Yeah,
a bigger
in the
target
crosshairs.
because
Yes.
Yeshua is out
Mhm.
somewhere, and Lazarus is there in Bethany all the time. We don't know if he moved to a more secluded spot, but clearly mentioning that he was there, which is unnecessary, means to me that he wasn't there necessarily all the time anymore.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay.
I could see why.
So
that-
but he,
This is following his death, that when he rose.
yes,
Mhm.
yes.
That's just
Mhm.
the hiding, because they already knew. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'm catching.
So
Yeah.
since he said before Passover, that means that any time lapse could have just happened, any time could have been, many days could have just, before
Yeah,
after his
Yeah.
resurrection?
yeah, it could have.
But it doesn't mention any days,
Mhm.
how many
No,
times?
I
It
see
doesn't
what you're
mention,
saying.
you know,
Okay.
Yeah,
yeah.
okay, that's
Yeah.
what I was thinking.
Some calculate a week, but it's an interesting calculation. We could go into that, but this is not a seminary class. We don't need all those details. All right. So anyhow, Mary therefore took a pound, right? She's already mentioned for this. Mary wanted, she took a pound of expensive ointment made from pure nard, and this is an East Indian plant that obviously they got this from the Far East, not East Indian, the Near East, the Mediterranean area. Okay, it's very expensive, and what she poured on him was worth a year's salary. Okay, it was a lot. All right, so she anoints the feet of Yeshua, and wiped his feet with her hair. The house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume. All right, so here they are, leaning on cushions. Yeshua's feet are exposed as he's reclining, and she chooses to anoint his feet. And of course, in any kind of a dinner, the feet would have been already washed, like a dead body would be washed, and then a dead body would be perfumed to cover the smell. You catch this? So, in other words, it doesn't mean she understood, but I suspect she did understand the message. Okay? I mean, there's a number of things she could have done, and Yeshua is explicit about why she did this. Right? Now, again, it's not for sure in my mind that she knew exactly what she was doing, but I suspect she did.
She could have had a dream.
Well,
It's still prophetic.
it is, yeah. Either way, it is okay. Some speculate that this was her life savings, but if they had a house and Lazarus had a house, this was a wealthy family. Okay, so this whole thing about it being her life savings, it's just made up. Okay, I mean, it makes a good story, like
But it wasn't the old widow putting her two
no,
in the corner.
no, it's a different.
But,
But-
it says spikenard grows in the Himalayas of Nepal, China, and India.
Okay,
So that's definitely not Near East.
no, but it does grow in the Near East.
India's
so.
Near East.
It's mountainous stuff.
Yeah.
So,
All right, so
definitely-
Judas Iscariot, one of the disciples, he who was about to betray him, of course that hasn't happened yet, said, "Why was this ointment not sold for 300 denarii and given to the poor?" What a nice guy. Just a nice guy, right? So Judas, Mark actually says it's not just Judas, but some murmured. So guess who started it? Judas.
Of course.
Mr. Dissension Maker. Guys, you see, here we are. We're strapped for funds. We're trying to help everybody. This could have been sold. And then he gets the murmuring
Spreads.
going, right? Okay, so Judas is at the thief, at the beginning, at the middle of this murmuring. Economic waste.
Must be a Democrat.
She must be. He said this not because he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief. Having charge of the money bag, he used to help himself to what was put into it. You don't think the disciples knew that? Don't you think they kind of, Yeshua? So why didn't he do it? Why didn't he do anything about it? Yeshua said, leave her alone, right? Leave her alone. Who's he speaking to? The group,
Yeah.
right? He's speaking to the
So
group.
he did not address him.
No, he's not just addressing Judas. He knows who's started the murmuring, but he's addressing all of those that are murmuring. Okay, and this was pretty tough. Leave her alone so that she may keep it for the day of my burial. And Mark is more explicit. She did it against the day of his burial. She knew, she understood what had to happen. Okay. She of all of the people there, she understood it and did this thing. For the poor you always have with you, but you don't always have me. That's what she understood. Okay.
But she kept it for the day of his burial, but he's not dead yet.
No.
He's not buried for a while yet.
But clearly she understands why he's there and why Judas, why he's going to have to die. Okay. She understands the life message. And we'll see in just a bit, he gives that life message again. Okay. So she's perceptive. And here's somebody who's this stupid woman is poured out this precious stuff and could have been used for such good, And Yeshua is basically, he could have said Judas, if you really were so concerned about the poor, you would never have a lack of opportunity to help them. Okay, if you want to help the poor, there's no lack of poor, Judas. Okay. But she sees a greater view. She sees the salvation of Israel. She sees Isaiah 53. She sees the salvation of the world. And we know that because of the soliloquy that is going to come afterwards from Yeshua. She sees it like John.
So is there anything about the hair that we take from this?
Humility.
Is there anything, you'd think, all right, so they're well-to-do, perhaps, probably. I think they'd have some claws or something.
Let me tell you, wealthy Jews, wealthy Romans, wealthy Greeks took a lot of time with their hair. You think the ladies today, with the beauty product, I'm telling you, the hair was their glory. And
That's why it was always covered.
Yeah, but not to their husbands.
Not to their husbands.
And my
So-
son's worried about his haircut.
Anyway, so she takes basically her glory, this precious
Yeah, me too.
commodity that she
That
has,
too,
you
along
know,
with the oil.
and she wipes his feet with that which represents the essence of her femininity and her humanity and who she is, and all of that is secondary to who he is.
Wow.
Okay, it's a big deal.
No.
It really is.
Wow.
Wow. I never thought about it.
Woman had to keep her hair covered once she's married. Is she married here?
We're not told.
We're not told.
We're not
Okay.
told. But I suspect she would be. Marriage,
She's certainly of age.
typical 13.
Yeah.
But
But so she's got her hair, she's uncovered in the presence of Jesus and the disciples.
Yeah.
Which,
Well, it's her home. It's
that's
not in the street. It's not public.
okay. That's the question.
Yeah, no. It's not public. It's not required in private. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes.
Well, because they love you.
Remember, you say Iscariot, it means Sicariot, right? He was a Sicariot.
Iscariot.
Iscariot, there you go.
Yeah, some interpret that as the village, but I don't see that. From the stories that we know after the scriptures, he was part of what's called the Sicarii, which was a group of assassins, really. And they would target, they were nationalists to the end. And they justified everything they did. They would rob, they would kill, they were highwaymen. They would spot somebody that they're going to assassinate, they'd go stick a dagger in them, and they were like ninjas. They were just unbelievable.
And
Right?
that's what Judas was part
Yeah.
of?
Yeah.
Wow.
So when it comes to betraying Yeshua, he has a particular idea in mind. And it has to do with what? At all costs, let's get the Romans out of here.
Yep.
Okay, so be thinking about that. What was his motive when everything that he did? Here he is, he's following Yeshua. He doesn't like everything Yeshua is saying, right? My kingdom is not of this world. What do you mean?
That's usually for the warrior.
Wrong, wrong Messiah. Yeah.
Wrong Messiah. I need a wartime consigliere, like the Godfather. Right? I was going to. When the large, are we on 9? I think we are. Yeah. Okay. When the large crowd of the Judeans learned that, now there's 2 crowds, so be careful about that. There's a real large crowd of people that followed Yeshua, and then there's a smaller crowd, which is substantial, of the Judeans. Okay. So when the large crowd of the Judeans learned that Yeshua was there, they came not only on account of him, but also to see Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. So the chief priests made plans to put Lazarus to death as well, because on account of him. Now, meaning this, they already had made plans. Lazarus is a rich guy. All the information comes to him because the big guys are at the gate of the city. They know everything. All the scuttlebutt, all the information. You want to know? You ask one of those guys at the gates of the city. They'll know everything. They'll know the news from a foreign land. They'll know the inner politics of the village or the city. They will know everything. Lazarus knew everything. Okay? So he's not going to be seen in public. But he takes the chance for the sake of Yeshua. He comes to dinner. That's why he's specifically mentioned in a sentence that does not really require it. If he's been there every single time, why mention it? Right? Okay. So, yeah. So, on account of him, many of the Judeans were going away and believing in Yeshua. How about that? That's a no-no, right?
Mine says we're leading their leaders.
Yeah. Yeah.
And putting their trust in Yeshua.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a big.
That's a big one. The next day, the large crowd. Now, this is the big, large crowd. Not just the Judeans, but this is the large, large crowd that had come to the feast, heard that Yeshua was coming to Jerusalem. So here's the entry into Jerusalem, smaller group and a larger group. So they took branches of palm trees and went out to meet him crying, Hosanna, save us now, right? Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, even the King of Israel. Now, this is a pretty bold statement. At every major festival, Psalm 118 is part of the Hallel, is recited. They're proclaiming him the Messiah, right? And Yeshua found a young donkey and sat on it, just as it is written. And where's that written? That's in Zechariah. Yes, Zechariah 9:9. And the rabbis had a time with this because in Daniel, he comes in the clouds. Zechariah comes on a donkey. And so, lofty Messiah, lowly Messiah. Some said, well, if we're deserving, the lofty Messiah will come. If we're undeserving, then the lowly Messiah will come. Well, that sends some kind of a message here. Okay? Others created 2 messiahs, Messiah the son of David, the lofty Messiah, and the Messiah the son of Joseph, who was the suffering Messiah. And the suffering Messiah would die, and the conquering Messiah would come and resurrect him. It's just an interesting, that's the way they, it sounds to me like if he's the same guy, that he's resurrecting himself.
But they always expected two messiahs, whether it be the same person or two different
Yes,
people is
yes,
irrelevant.
yes,
But
yes,
either two messiahs or first and second coming.
yes, yes, absolutely. Great. So this is clearly, O daughter of Zion, so come from your fears, O daughter of Zion. Yeah, go ahead.
What's the relevance of the palm tree branches?
Palm trees, that's
I know it.
the lulav. It's,
Yeah, when it's in the front, the back.
that's the palm leaf is the lulav. Okay, so on Sukkot, it has special significance because it's part of the building material of the sukkah. When they recite the Hallel, the palm trees represent the kingship, like a fan or a flag, right?
Okay.
Okay, waving on the banner, welcoming the king. I mean, they would do this with any king or any dignitary, but here they're quoting Psalm 118. And okay, this is the large crowd. His disciples didn't understand these things at first, but when Yeshua was glorified, then they remembered that these things had been written about him and had been done to him. So they get their understanding just like we get our understanding after things happen. And we have to be relegated. I know everybody wants what's the secret? What's the future? You'll know when you get there. You can say some things, but prophecy has this amazing quality of being known when it happens. Oh, that's what he meant. You know? Okay. So we have this whole thing rising up. His disciples didn't understand. Mary understood. John understood. There were people who understood, but his disciples generally did not understand. Did John? John understood from the beginning, and he writes like that. But this is a broad brush. His disciples, i.e., most of them, the world, a lot of them. Those who feared the Lord, not everybody, because there's levels of that, right? So it's in that sense pejorative, meaning a lot. Like all of Galilee came out to see him. Come on, not everybody, not every baby, not every sick person, all right? But a lot of people. The world will be saved, a lot. All Israel will be saved, a lot. Okay, so keep in mind what the scripture is saying, that representative of the people, it's as if the essence of the majority is what's meant. Okay, so they didn't understand it, and certain ones did, but clearly John is trying to tell us that it is the resurrection of Yeshua that is the key for unlocking the mystery. Without the resurrection, if there's no resurrection, there's no death. Right? So death and resurrection go together. They're required to unlock the meaning of the coming of the Messiah. Right? Others would say, no, the Messiah will tell us all the things that we've been wondering about, the mysteries of the Torah, that will unlock the mystery of the last days. Okay. Others said, no, Messiah will show us how to rightly do the priesthood. Okay. So everybody's thinking, what is the key thing we're expecting from the Messiah that will qualify his mystery? Well, we just can't draw an exact picture. Okay. But John and the other writers of the Gospels are saying, no, you've missed it. It's the sacrifice. See, this is why there is a strong movement, and it's not new, coming in. You're going to see it more and more. Substitutionary atonement is being attacked left and right by prominent Christians. And they don't like anything that looks of violence. They say the crucifixion was perpetrated by the Romans. It was evil. It was human, but had nothing to do with the atonement. And you don't have to go further than that. But when you begin to hear that, know what's coming down the pike. Okay, and there's other things as well. It's only the God of love, the God of the Old Testament. That's gone. That's bye-bye. And now that was actually a heresy in the 2nd century, right? The God of love, the God of hate, right? So when you hear that, know that there's going to be something wrong. There's just going to be something wrong. Clearly in the Gospels, in Paul's writing, substitutionary sacrifice, substitutionary atonement is crucial for unlocking the meaning of why Messiah needs to come at all. Why not just raise up another Davidic king if that's what you want? If you want an earthly kingdom that works for a while, or if you want an earthly kingdom that works for 1,000 years, raise up a bunch of Davids and their sons that are just like David, right? But that wasn't the issue. It needed to be a total transformation. Reformation could not bring about the kind of story where it's as if none of that other stuff ever happened. And that's what you need to gain full access to God and to bring an end to the story. One needs to wipe out the past as if it never happened in that sense. Not that it didn't happen, it did happen. But that the effects of the past, the effects of the fall, the effects of perpetuating the fall, the birth into Adam had to change into the birth in Messiah. Right? These are radical things that Yeshua has tried to teach the disciples that they understood afterwards. So take heart if you don't understand something, give it a little time. They were with Yeshua for 3.5 years, okay? And they still didn't understand because they, too, Peter whips out his sword and says, it's time for battle, boys. It's time. It's time for Yeshua to send the army.
Because John was involved in the church. I'm not in the church, but in the synagogue before he was.
He was of a priestly line.
But he knew everything that went on.
For some reason, he got it right away.
Right. So okay. I'm just saying, it's because of what he knew previous, he got it.
He was malleable enough to get it.
Right.
In other words, if you're not malleable enough, if you're rigid, and you can only see it one way, it's going to take you some time to, it's a stronghold. A stronghold is people misunderstand. A stronghold is not something you can pray away. You can't cast it out. A stronghold is something that builds on the basis of one lie after another. And it's the lies that need to be destroyed, and then the stronghold can come down. And all of a sudden it's like, I should have had a V8. I got it now. I see it.
I didn't really understood what was a stronghold. I remember you mentioned it years ago. Stronghold. Everybody was mentioning, and I was like, what is a stronghold? And I thought this was something that you pray away. But then
it didn't work.
And now I understand it.
Yeah.
And then I hear it, and I'm like, oh no, I'm not spending my time.
So
this is why I also feel like the crowds, they were becoming larger and larger as compared to the leadership that was up, because they did not have that stronghold, so they were easier, so to speak, to train, to teach, than someone who already thinks they know the answer and who spend most of the time rebuttaling instead of analyzing what the truth is.
What could be a greater stronghold than this? If I force Yeshua's hand, if I get him into an untenable predicament where he and the disciples are in mortal danger, and I set this thing up, surely he will call upon the armies of heaven and wipe out the Romans. That's a plan. That's a real plan. That's believing in spiritual things, but it's a stronghold built on lies. Okay?
Trying to leverage or strong arm a situation to occur.
Yeah.
Basically.
One lie after another. We can rob because our cause is just.
Yes.
We can kill because our cause is just. We can lie because our what's that?
Robin Hood.
Oh, I forgot to say hello to Robin if she's watching. You don't remind me.
That's the wrong Robin. That's the wrong.
So betraying the Messiah is
This is
just
Robin
another
with
part of the plan.
That's why getting to know him is more important than getting to know about him. Because getting to know about him, you can misinterpret it. right? But if you know him, if you get to know a friend and spend time with a friend, you know them. But if you're just depending on hearsay, well, so and so is really kind and they're nice, and or somebody writes something about them and whatnot, and then you get to know them, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, they're nothing like what these people are saying. You get to know that person, then you can say what that person is, and that's why I love transformation by intimacy with God, with anybody, especially spouses. If they can learn to be transformed into looking like Yeshua, then they're not going to want to fight. They're not going to want lies. They're not going to want misrepresentations. They're not going to want self, right? They're going to want the truth. And it takes some time to get somebody out of that mindset, because those strongholds, it takes decades, and they're formed, they begin to be formed at a very young age. So this has a lot of application. The crowd that had been with him when he called Lazarus out of the tomb and raised him from the dead continued to bear witness. The reason why the crowd went to meet him was that they heard that he had done this sign. Okay, so they're continuing to follow him. It was powerful. They knew Lazarus, and they knew he had died, right? And they knew also that he had raised up. So look what the Pharisees' response. They're frustrated beyond belief. So the Pharisees said to one another, "You see that you are gaining nothing," accusing one another. You have this plan, you have that. Look, the world has gone after him. Now, is it the world? No, but it's a large number.
The
Okay.
immediate world.
Yeah, okay. But a large number, not a little number. Thousands.
Lots.
Lots. Okay. Lots and lots. Big lots. All right. Now, among those who went up to worship at the feast were some Greeks. Now, among those, the word ek here means from out of those who went to worship at the feast were some Greeks. Now, the word here is Hellene, and that word differs from Hellenistai. Let's take a look at Hellenistai, what this might be. Acts chapter 6, verse 1 uses Hellenistai, not Hellene, but Hellenistai. Now, at this time, when the disciples were increasing in number, a complaint arose on the part of the Hellenistic Jews. The Hellenistic, it's interpreted Greeks, but that gives a kind of a wrong, to the common reader, that means Jews and Gentiles. Acts 6:1. So this is not a Jewish-Gentile issue. This is a Jewish issue. That the Judean, Acts chapter 6, verse 1. The Judean Jews were snubbing the needs of the Hellenistic Jews. After all, circumcision is nothing to them. Keeping kosher is nothing to them. They go to the theater, they carouse with evildoers, and blah, 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 blah. All right. So a complaint arose on the part of the Hellenistic Jews against the native Hebrews. That's going to be very clear. Because their widows were being overlooked in the daily serving of food. Okay, so anyhow, this goes on and on and on. Here the word is not Hellenistai. So it's here, the Greeks that are here are God-fearing Greeks, not converts. They are God-fearing Greeks, unbelievers, non-Jews, non-Israelites. And they've come up to the feast. And so these came to Philip, who was from Bethsaida in Galilee. Now, yeah.
You said they were not Jews.
Not Jews.
Not Jewish Greek
Gentiles. Gentiles.
Because
Yeah.
mine has
Yeah, I read
mine
it.
says, Greek-speaking Jews. That's what mine says.
Is that David Stern?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
He missed it on that because the word, if it were Greek-speaking Jews, the Greek word would be Hellenistai, and it's not. Why does John specifically not use that word? Because it means something else. Okay. All right. Greeks are interested, non-Jews are interested, who are also interested in the feasts, coming to Jerusalem for the feast, and they were welcomed by the Jews. Only they had their place. right? They couldn't go to certain places. But they were
They were at the kids' table.
they were in what's called the Gentile court.
Yeah.
Okay. So anyhow, these came to Philip. Now Philip has a Greek name. He also was from Bethsaida in Galilee, so his accent clearly was Galilean. And in Galilee was far enough away from Jerusalem that the Galileans had constant interaction with non-Jews. Okay, Judea not so much, but Galilee.
Well, the land was populated by Greeks for a couple centuries
Yeah.
before all
Yeah.
this too.
Oh,
so a lot of them, there's a remnant of Greeks, is what I'm saying.
Absolutely. Okay, so that would be common. So these Greeks, hearing of Yeshua, sensitized to the festivals and whatnot, they're coming, and they hear Philip speaking, and they recognize the dialect. They recognize it's a Greek name. They ask him, "Sir, we wish to see Yeshua." What does Philip do? He goes to Andrew. Andrew is the guy, he knows what to do. Okay? Andrew gets Peter after he sees the Messiah. Andrew gets the loaves and the fishes. It's like, okay, I don't know what you're going to do with these, but, here it is. Yeah, so Philip goes to the can-do guy, right? Or the well-meaning guy, or the person that actually follows through. And Andrew and Philip went and told Yeshua, okay? And Yeshua answered them. Now, the antecedent to them is not the Greeks, okay? It's not the Greeks. The hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. Now, from Isaiah chapter 49, verse 6, he says, "Is it too small a thing that you should be my servant to raise up the tribes of Jacob and to restore the preserved ones, the diaspora of Israel? I will also make you a light of the nations." He's talking about the Messiah. "So that my salvation may reach the ends of the earth." Okay, so the scripture itself always bears out it's a humanity redemption that stems from Israel, is forwarded by Israel. The scriptures are kept by Israel, given over to Jews and Gentiles, right? But Gentiles are definitely in the mix, in Yeshua's mind, in the Messiah's mind. So the hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. Now, there's no record that indicate that he ever answered the Greeks directly, or even met with them. He answered them. It could mean the Greeks, but the action, he's not going anywhere. In other places, Yeshua goes out of his way to speak to somebody that he just healed, for example. But he doesn't do that here. So he's speaking to the disciples. "Truly, truly, I say to you, unless a grain of wheat falls to the earth and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit." All right?
So, Rabbi, why he said that the hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified, meaning he's dead.
Yes.
By the group seeking him, which means what? His word already has spread widely, okay?
And will continue to do so, especially after the resurrection. A seed dies in the sense that it's buried in the ground. Is it really dead? No. It's germinating. Is Yeshua dead? He's dead, but he raises himself up. It's like the plant that bears fruit, though it looks like it's dead. Lazarus looked like he was dead. Was he dead? Yes. But this was not the end in death. Okay? Seed looks dead, but it's not the end in death. All right? Larry planted 72 seeds. He figured a percentage of them would germinate and pop up. 72 came up.
Robin planted, but okay, yeah.
All right. Okay. So whoever loves his life, his suke means It's usually rendered the soul. It's the essence of who you are. Zoe is the word for life when you mean, you combine it with the word usually in the scriptures with eternal. So Zoe is usually associated with eternal life. So let me read it this way. Whosoever loves the essence of his life, loves who he is, right? The real him, all right? Loses it. And whoever hates his essence of who he is, fallen man, can't seem to do the mitzvot, can't seem to, I'm struggling. I hate this. I want to be righteous. If I hate that, then I gain my life. But what kind of life do we get? Eternal life, Zoe. Right? So if you love who you are, right? Listen, I'm doing the best I can, and you're satisfied with that, and that it is. You're going to lose your life. But if you hate that, if you know that there's something very wrong about that, right? That you cannot do it on your own, and you say to God, "Look, God, I'm frustrated. I can't do this on my own." That's the best thing you can say. Then you'll gain your life.
It's like knowing your true identity.
Yeah, that your true identity is not something that you can concoct or dig up or purify. Right? I can't do it on my own.
Right.
Even under the Tanakh, just Job. What better man was there than Job? But remember, he offered sacrifices for his children in case they had cursed God. He wanted to cover everybody's business. Huh?
Everybody misinterprets him as a righteous man. And then you mentioned that.
He became righteous. He was perfect in what he thought was God. But remember, when he actually encountered God, he said, "I have heard of you by the hearing of the ear, but now my eye sees you, and I loathe myself." It's just what you should say. I loathe myself compared to what I'm seeing. That's the best thing, right? God, I've been trying to do it all myself. I didn't need you, really. Just trying to please you. When I got into trouble, I gave a prayer, put the quarter in, right? And that was all wrong. So he became righteous. So he's saying this to the disciples. Why? What's the point? The point is that that's the real message, not only to the Jews, but to the Greeks. Like, that's the same message that can be preached to all peoples. Doesn't matter what their religion is. Everybody is going to be dissatisfied if they are open to seeing what is. Every religion is dissatisfied by what it's producing in them, unless they're saying to God, "I don't like what I'm seeing. I hate this. I want something better than this." And then God gives them enlightenment, right? They gain their life. Anyone who serves me, he must follow me, and where I am, there will my servant be also. If anyone serves me, the Father will honor him. All right? In other words, yes, we're in a crisis. But if you follow me in this crisis, you will not be defined by it, and you'll be glorified in it. Just like I will be glorified in my death by willingness to die through the resurrection, you will be glorified as well. Okay? So rather see the big picture. Can you? Is the big picture worth more than the travail that we're going through, than the fear that I'm going to die? Well, I will. But you've got to follow me in that death. And if you die, you die. Now, in fact, it turns out they're not going to die. Right? Many of them die, almost all of them die later in martyrdom, right? But you follow me, right? You follow me, and where I am, wherever I end up, which is at the right hand of the Father, you're going to be there too. You're going to end up where I am, because the servant is close to the master. And even if the servant is far away in the land doing the master's bidding, eventually the master comes back and settles up with the servant. The servant is back with the master, right? If anyone serves me, the Father will honor him. Now is my soul, my suche, who I really am, troubled. And what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour. He's feeling everything that a human being would feel. All of the fear, all of the travail, and all of the understanding of all the misunderstanding that's going to occur even after his resurrection. And all the false teaching and all the craziness. He sees it. But for this purpose, I have come to this hour. It's not this day anymore. It's the hour, a shorter time. Times, time, half the time. Okay. So here's serving.
That father saving from this hour, I just made a correlation because we were talking about it. That's Psalms 22 as well.
Yeah.
That's Psalms 22.
Yeah. And that was the king
The king.
complaining,
Yes.
right? And what was he complaining about? Those people are saying that you've left me.
Right. You forsake me.
Those people say you've forsaken me. Those people say that I'm unrighteous. Okay? So he's mimicking everything, and he's feeling that. Now, many people believe that God averted his eyes, at the crucifixion. I want to challenge that. He couldn't be separated.
We were just talking about that before.
The Son is not separated from the Father. Okay? The Father has to watch the Son. Yeah, too tight. Okay. Anyway, when we get to it.
He abandoned him to that death.
So, yes. So when we get to it, let's discuss that a little bit. Okay. Father, glorify your name. Then a voice came down from heaven. I have glorified it, and I will glorify it again. Right? This corresponds to Gethsemane later on, doesn't it? Right? Shrinking from death and saying no.
What I love about that also is that it also proves the separation, the triune, Trinity. Right, because people heard that voice. They see Yeshua and they heard, so it's separate. It's two different things.
So let's see what the crowd's reaction is.
Okay.
The crowd that stood there and heard this said, it is thundered. Others said, an angel spoke to him. Yeshua answered, this voice has come for your sake, not mine.
Yes.
Don't be confused about it. You hear what you hear because you don't have ears to hear. So you're confused. That's what he's saying early on. Lord, my soul is confused, confounded. I'm feeling what they're going to feel. Confounded. But for this hour have I come into this world. In other words, you guys are going to be confounded. You guys are going to be, as a matter of fact, you're going to be confounded right after I speak right now, even though you're seeking me. But for this hour have I come into the world. You trust the Father to guide you through your confusion, and you come out with understanding. And then you'll know it was not an angel that spoke. It was not thunder that spoke, but my Father spoke.
So
And that voice will
because
clear
there's
up.
Separation, that's why they didn't recognize his.
Yeah, I mean,
It's not,
I can, look, I can hear a prophecy, another person can hear a prophecy. The same prophecy, two different interpretations. Well, this is what it means. Or this is what it means. And then we find out it didn't mean either one of those. Okay? Because we're not listening. We're listening out of our confusion. We're trying to make sense in a logical way, our sense. But we're not listening for the answer. When the people say, his blood be upon us, what are they saying? They're saying, we'll take the rap for it, but there's another meaning. Yes, his blood will be upon you for salvation. Okay? They're not ready to hear that yet.
Not knowing that they said it as a...
They were prophesying
Yes, exactly.
about Israel's salvation. Okay? But they thought they were saying something else. Okay? And that, remember, in John, one of the big themes is confusing the message, not understanding the message. Right? And we see this throughout the scriptures. Cain did not understand his position to the family. He felt this heavy weight of being the redeemer, thrust upon him because they misinterpreted that the one who would stamp on the serpent's head would be Cain. Clearly. And he was mad at Goody Two Shoes, right? well, Cain, you're the firstborn, you're supposed to be the guy. How come you're acting like this? I could just imagine the conversations. He gets so mad, he kills him. Right? It wasn't an accident. He took him out into the field to kill him. Okay? So the crowd that stood by, all right, so they have their interpretations. Now is the judgment of this world. Now will the ruler of this world be driven out. Cast out is the word, but driven out. Luke chapter 22, verse 53. This is your hour, and the power of darkness, right, is going to be eliminated, right? 1 John 5, verse 19. The whole world is in the power of the evil one. We know that. Then there's this tension in 1 John 2:13 between the victory, right? The victory already won, and 1 John 5:4 and 5, a victory still to be won. But it is already won because the end of the book's been read. But we haven't, just like we've seen with Mary and Lazarus, hasn't happened yet in its entirety. But judgment is right now. Judgment is in the world right now. Okay? And what is that? What is the end result of the judgment? That the ruler of this world, who promoted what is being judged, will be driven out. You catch that? The judgment is already here. And the result will be that the evil one who produced everything that needs to be judged will be driven out.
Wow.
He was driven out of heaven. Now he's going to be driven out of the earth. Okay?
Because Jesus was taking on the judgment.
Yeah.
So, in some translations, it says, I will draw all men or everyone. That's not what it says. The subject is, I will draw all judgment to myself. Because he doesn't draw all men to himself.
Well, I have to think about that. Maybe we should stop there a second.
I'm saying that because in the Greek, and I don't know it that well, but it doesn't say what's translated. It just says, I will draw all to myself. And people put in
So the people is
men, or it must be talking about all people, but that doesn't make any sense to me because the subject is about judgment. So he's drawing all the judgment to him. And he's
You know what?
taking-
Let's stop here and look at that carefully. I'm going to look at that. I've never thought of
I
it
want
that
to
way.
see I want to know if you're seeing the same thing, because it just could be me.
Well, if I do, you have a job. You won't make as much money.
So he's going to be Rabbi Emeritus.
He skipped the whole rabbi period. Just the emeritus.
Then I got to find something to do.
I just like the American.
Anyway, okay, that's a good place to stop. Thank you for joining us, and I hope this was exciting to you. It's going to continue to be more exciting as we get into the depth of the story. So join us on our camp out. What is the facility? I always forget. Camp Cardinal in Yorktown, and that it is Gloucester. It's not Yorktown. Okay, see,
But it's close.
it's close. Okay, look on our website. Anyway, if you want to come up for the day, I think all the campsites are taken. But for Sukkot, the congregation is going up there. We're going to celebrate. It's going to be a great time. We'll have a sukkah up there at Lulav's, and we're going to celebrate the birth of the Messiah and God protecting us in the wilderness. There will not be services Saturday morning at Crossroads Church. And all I can say is boomba. There's nothing more I can say. God bless you.
It's too late. It is
And,
a congregational life.
If you want to write us, it's 131 Forsyth Street, Norfolk, Virginia, 23505. You can go on our website. There's a kiosk there. You can press a button, donate to us, or write us, and we'll be glad to get back with you as soon as we can. Shalom, and we'll see you shortly.